Okay, we're live. Hi, I am Nancy Sheet of Sheet Communications, and I am very excited to be here today with Kayleigh O'Keefe of Soul Excellence Publishing. Kayleigh came my way from, we were introduced by way of David Wells, I believe, right? Who was a client and had his own launch earlier this year. And I'm excited to chat with Kayleigh today because she has such an interesting journey into publishing, as well as a shortcut for anybody who's interested in learning how to get published in a book. So Kayleigh, you did not start out in publishing, so welcome, and tell us a little bit about how you came to this world. I know, you didn't roll out of college and say, I'm going to be a publisher. So give us the backstory.
So you're right. I didn't roll out of college thinking I would be a publisher, but I did look back at something that I wrote in the 3rd grade in Mrs. Hurley's class. And they asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? And in that, I wrote a writer and an Olympian.
Okay, one down.
I knew I wanted to write, and I knew I wanted to achieve big things. I don't have the athletic talent, but I've always loved writing, and it's been a huge part of just my story and what I love to do. When I left college, I spent 14 years in the corporate world. So I was consulting for Fortune 500 companies. I shifted into early stage technology startups and really kind of got the entrepreneurial bug working in that environment and realizing that, wait a minute, entrepreneurship might not be born. Like it is a mindset. It's something that can be taught. And so that got me super excited. And at the beginning of last year, when I knew, I just felt this calling to go down a different path. I had been, kind of running the rat race and supporting everyone else's dream. And I thought, okay, I want to create something. I don't know what it is. And the term soul excellence came to me one day where I'm like, I love this expression because it's about, who are we as individuals? So that soul part. And then how are we out in the world leading lives of integrity and having a big impact? So the excellence part. So I had this phrase in my mind. I'm like, all right, that's exciting. And my journey to becoming a publisher began with really fulfilling that 3rd grade dream of being a published writer first. And so I had the opportunity last year to write a chapter in a multi-author book where 30 women from around the world gathered together we wrote in this book called Awakening, Meet the Woman Birthing a New Earth. And when the opportunity was presented to me to become a published author and to do so by only writing a chapter and then get to know women from around the world, I was like, okay, this sounds amazing. I don't have to wait 10 years to write my full book and start getting my story out there. Like I can do that today. So that's what started opening my eyes up to, there are different ways now in the world we don't have to wait for a traditional publisher and kind of do that process in order to get our message out there. So once I had that experience and it allowed me to see what else was going on in the world, I realized from a personal standpoint, it's an amazing business model. It's an amazing way to connect with incredible people. And so I jumped in and started my own publishing company to help really busy executives, leaders, entrepreneurs who are not going to write that full book right now, but they want to express, they want to share, they want to sort of break free from their corporate writing and share a bigger message and share their personal stories. I just realized I could really blend my past world and everyone I worked with this new model of publishing. And it's just been an amazing journey ever since. So
I would love the tactics, like because you now do that which you did, right? Like, so what was your path to getting into this book? Did somebody reach out to you? Were you part of a community? Like what made you sort of, it sounds like this was your path. Like, I want to write, here's a baby step. I mean, but I'm just curious, like, do you see an email? Are you in a group? Like, what does that look like? Does it come from above, right? Like,
yeah, so I'll share kind of how it happened to me and then sort of how I offer the opportunity up now for the leaders that I work with. So it literally came through a woman that was my business coach last year when I was just starting out and figuring out like, all right, I've left corporate. I'm going to start a business. Don't even know what that looks like yet. Like,
I haven't heard of this thing called COVID yet.
It wasn't even on the radar. And so she knew the publisher and was like, look, this book about birthing a new earth and women stepping forward and becoming entrepreneurs. And it was the whole theme of the book. So she invited me to participate, and there was a short application process. And so there wasn't even like a sales page or anything. It was truly just an invitation. It was that simple and easy for me to say yes. And since I had that desire to share, it was easy. And that's how I do it now, is I create books. I put the invitation out to leaders on LinkedIn, and it's a real easy, like, gut yes or no for people to participate, which is fun.
Very curious question. Was one of the requirements that you had to have written before or have published work before? I'm very curious, like what those, I mean, and I'm sure it's different, but what are those kind of requirements? So, you're getting some, they might be a very great leader, but they might not have great writing skills. How do you decide that?
So that's a great question. So for my company, what I'm really seeking is someone who has an authentic message to share. And so I've had to sort of take off my perfectionist hat, which is like, okay, I want people who are really talented writers, and say, actually, that's not so important. And what is going to connect with the audience is that emotional connection and really the vulnerability that the leader is willing to have. And so I found, actually, for those that have been published before, or now they're kind of in a position where their corporate communications team is doing a lot of writing for them, that's really not the type of person that I enjoy working with or is a great fit for multi-author books, because it truly has to be an expression, like a self-expression, and not edited through all of these filters. So I've had to overcome that. And then, we'll use our editing process to spruce things up a bit, but I'm not, I haven't been too concerned of like, okay, is this a high caliber writer? No, I'm like, is this a high integrity individual with a story to share? So that's kind of how I think about it.
Got it. And so we kind of jumped ahead. So you get to be in your own, and this is great, and we'll keep going backwards and forwards, but you got to be part of this process of a multi-author book. You're like, oh my gosh, this was a great experience. This is bringing people together. How do I do this? So then you are like, all right, this is my business model. Let me do this, right? Like, so what did you have to, like, did you have to suddenly learn the ins and outs of actual publishing, or is that like farmed out, or, were you focused on the people? Are you focused on the process?
Yeah.
Or both? Just curious sort of what you had to do to get up to speed to be publishing.
Yeah. So a few things, like I did learn from my publisher how to run this kind of business. So I invested to learn the process and the model, and I'm always investing in myself. So that was just like, okay, this is a no-brainer. And then when it comes to actually publishing model, for me, I care a lot more about the vision and the people. And I had to recognize that early on, and say, for the process part, for formatting, for editing, for all these things that when you're an early entrepreneur, you're like, okay, I need to do all of this myself, finances are tight, or, I want full control. And what was so beautiful about this model is it forced me to adopt a CEO mindset from day one, where I still had like that lingering employee mindset of like, okay, tasks, let me do it all.
Right.
So, in setting the vision, I was really focused on, on marketing, on connecting with leaders, on then building the community, because multi-author books are about getting to know the other participants, feeling, safe as part of sharing your story. So that's where I focus all of my energy. And then I did outsource and hire a team for formatting, for editing, for cover design, for all of those things. And this has been a huge process for me, learning and unlearning a lot of my habits about being a control freak and worrying about all of these things, and saying, no, like my role here is to hold the space for these leaders and to actually encourage them to go deeper. And that was hard in the first book for leaders who were so used to button up communication of like, all right, can you go deeper? Can you share with more emotion? Can you tell us a bit more about what that was feeling like? And so that's also what I love about this model, is I get to do the things that I believe are my zone of genius, facilitating, the vision, calling people in. And then I trust that I'm hiring the right people that are supporting me, supporting the authors, supporting the process.
Got it. I love that, because you and I spoke about this earlier. I'm like, Do you have to go digging into like all of that, other stuff? Do you have to go digging into like, excuse me, how to like keyword in Amazon? Like there's so many pieces to quote unquote being a publisher. And so
Yeah.
what I've learned on this journey is there's so many different ways of being a publisher or being a publishing company. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So for those of you, I had made my little like title that has somehow disappeared where we were going to talk about what did we say it was? It was how to be an author without your own book, right?
Yeah.
How to be an author without your own book. Sorry, this is where the I don't know why that didn't work, but we're going to add that in. And
we're bookies, not techies,
exactly. So, and now it's without your own book. I still have to edit it. Okay, bear with us for technology. Oh, I promise you, it's a little bit save. Now we're gonna show it. Awesome. So, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Nancy Sheet of Sheet Communications. I'm very excited to be here with Kayleigh O'Keefe of Soul Excellence Publishing. Soul Excellence Publishing is a publisher of multi-author books and leadership books. And the reason we're excited to be talking to Kayleigh is she literally has this secret baby step of how you can kind of baby step your way into being an author. So I think it's something that people don't think about. They get overwhelmed, right, Kayleigh, of I really want to write a book. I don't know how to do it. And this model that you've created gives people an opportunity to get a taste of it. And this may be as far as they go, but tell me more about how it works, as well as kind of the ideal people to do this or try this approach, right?
Yeah. So I think what's really fascinating is that there's so much happening in the publishing world right now, where you are seeing lots of publishing houses like mine come onto the scene, because we are really hitting on this desire for people to share their story, to get published, but who don't have time to write their full book right now and don't want to spend the money that it actually, people think you're going to get paid all these advances. Like that's gone way down. It's really not the way it works for most people these days. So a lot of people have this desire, but it's really easy to push it away and say, someday I'll do this, one day I'll do this. And, I'm a type of person where I'm like, I don't want to wait for one day. Like, what can we do now? Like, let's do something today. So for the leaders that I work with, this first step of writing one chapter, 3,000 to 4,000 words on a topic that's, deeply touching to the person because they've said yes to the project. It is such a beautiful first step to get a message out into the world. It inspires confidence if I'm someone who can write and be published and share my story.
Right.
And naturally, people are like, wait, okay, if I can write one chapter, I can write that whole book. And so that's where we go next, of helping these leaders write their own books. And so it's this really natural process of getting a taste. All right, this was really fun. And it's way more fun to do it with other people. That's what I'm finding while working with my solo authors. Like, okay, we're kind of missing that, like,
the community.
The community. So we'll build that too in the business. But this type of model is really ideal for the person who's just, I want to get my story out there. I want to shift like for my company, it's I want to shift the culture. I want to leave a legacy. I want to share a story that's never been said before. There's definitely a healing component to writing and putting yourself out there. And you'll find different publishing companies that really speak to, ones for women and birthing, mine's really for executives and entrepreneurs. So I want to say, if you have this desire, like you're going to find that publishing house that's perfect for you and that offers opportunities to contribute in books that speak to you.
And that was going to be, I was like, of course you could call Kayleigh and work with her, right? But how does one, aside from you, what is somebody searching for? What do they look for? I mean, literally, multi-author books or community, or is there a database of people like you? Like, I'm just curious, I have seen approaches where it's like, you can be part of this book, but there's a big, huge dollar sign and the commitments. And I was like, it seemed, I'm going to be honest, it seemed a little bit sketchy, right? So I think I'm wanting, how do people find more of the Kayleighs in the world that it serves their purpose as much as it serves the publisher's purpose. Does that make sense?
It does. And, you know, a lot of the publishing houses out there right now are really geared toward entrepreneurs, or basically to people who do have something to sell or offer on the back end. And so they're for sure a promotional tool. My audience is a little bit different, since they're in corporate, they have their jobs, they're not planning on leaving their jobs. Like, there's nothing that they're selling on the back end necessarily. And so that's just been interesting to note, of like working with VPs, like, what do they want? They want to be seen and be heard. There's a lot of places, largely on Facebook, where you can find, I don't know if you'd search for multi-author book, but it's searching for themes and things that you care about. And then you'll start to notice there's probably a publishing house that is kind of aligned to that. So I'm thinking of my friend Colleen. She owns Wise Woman Book Collective. And so she brings together female publishers like myself, so that we're sort of seeing what other people are doing, learning from each other as publishers. So that's a pretty, you know, that's a good place too.
And I know there are writing communities where people share best practices, right? So I know that also happens there. But let's give examples, Kayleigh, what, you know, in terms of, we've talked about these, but so you went out with your first project last year. What was your first book that you published? Let's do some bragging. What was the name of your first book? Show and tell.
Oh yeah, so the first book was Leading Through the Pandemic, Unconventional Wisdom from Heartfelt Leaders. And I was inspired to set the vision for this book in like late August. And I just thought, the leaders are the ones among us that are always adapting and responding first. And so what did people out in the world, how did they have to change? How did they have to grow as a result of the pandemic, as the result of lockdowns, and what can we learn from them? So selfishly, I mean, as the CEO of the company, I'm creating books where it's like, I want to learn something. So I create a book and I learn from all these people, and it's amazing. So this book, I think we had 24 leaders from around the world. So Australia, US, and you know, they all just shared their stories of personal growth and transformation. And we hit Amazon bestseller in Australia, in India, in the United States, in multiple categories, which was amazing, and really is the power of each of these leaders sharing their stories and sharing the book with their networks and building momentum and excitement around it. So I'm really, really proud of that book, and for the leaders in it, not just because of their titles, you know, SVP levels, people who are managing 2,000 person teams across the globe. Like, these are very accomplished individuals, and to see them, you know, even with all that acclaim, to see them really struggle in the writing process and be able to support them through it was personally very, very rewarding.
Wow. And just to understand time frame, like, you wrote a book about leading the pandemic. The pandemic's only been around for a year. So what was your time frame from great idea to connecting with the leaders, getting their content, and the book coming out? What did that timeline look like?
So this might be my favorite thing about multi-author books, is that they can be so timely because of the timeline. So I was recruiting and searching for leaders like late September, October. And, you know, they were basically writing November. Everything was due by mid-December, and we published January 16th. Oh my God. It was like 3 months, really.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So really nice, as opposed to 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, that you kind of, as you go more traditional, those timelines tend to go on. That's amazing.
So it just allows everyone to capitalize on the momentum and the energy, you know. So when you start, you start writing and you're like, okay, I can put it off for a year. I can do it. Like, here, we're very much like, all right, now we're going for it. Like, yes, you're going to write this chapter in 4 weeks. And I know it's going to sound crazy to you, but it's totally possible. And let's help you get into the flow and access your message and work through any blocks that are coming up. Like, that's sort of the space building part that I do for the leaders. Because it really doesn't take that long when you are tapped in and you have a message to share. And that's, you know, for leading through the pandemic, for the leaders, it was like, oh gosh, which story do I share? There's so much that has happened. But yeah, it was a real quick timeline.
That's amazing. One quarter, you've gone from unpublished to published author. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next? You did, you got leadership off. As that's being published, did you already have, I mean, that was only January. So did you already have your next book idea? Were you already reaching out? I mean, is there an overlap in this timeline?
Yes, yes. So this is all back to stepping into, CEO mindset of like, yes, you need to be leading multiple things at once to sustain and grow your business. And so as we were, formatting, getting everything ready to publish, leading through the pandemic, I was starting to recruit and look for leaders for my next book. So that project is called Significant Women: Leaders Reveal What Matters Most. And it's a pretty incredible project because, like I said before, I want to hear about the things that I'm curious about. And so in a world of limitless options, how do women define success on their own terms? So again, the audience, they're all, VP levels and above. They're super accomplished in their careers, but hearing about what made them who they are, the detours that they took, the decisions that they made, the pain that they experienced, the loss that guided them. This book is incredible, and it's a little bit different. We have, I think, 6 European authors. So I also like to throw in a new personal challenge every time of like,
Right.
how is this one going to be a little bit different? So that's been super fun too, of just having this really diverse group of experiences, perspectives. And that one comes out 3 weeks from today, April 6th. Yeah, April 16th.
Oh,
so I guess so that one's coming up.
A quarter, no problem. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is. That is my strategy. I want to be building my community, building my network, and then sensing the needs of the authors to say, what else is going on in their lives? How else can I serve them? The book writing process is a way for me to get to know these individuals at a really deep level. Right. And it allows me to see because for me, publishing isn't really the end game. It's this beautiful way to create community, to collaborate on something tangible in the real world. So it's been super fun. So that one's April 16th. And yeah, I'm already thinking about the next one, which is going to be Schools Canceled. So this marks a shift where I'm like, it's called Schools Canceled: How Working Parents Fought for Their Children's Education During the Pandemic. So this is me, I think, dipping a little bit more into cultural issues that I care about. One of them is education. And I want to hear from parents who've just been frustrated, upset, unimpressed by what's going on in their local school districts, how they found better options for their children, whether at home, and just the experience in education over this past year from working parents who have really
well, and from each one, do you already have your topics? Do you already know your next book idea that's let's say 6 months out, or are these kind of evolving as you're seeing either your passion versus maybe themes? Like to me, the path from your leadership book to the Significant Women, to me, I would draw that you might have seen some stories that either didn't make the cut, or their stories started going in a way that were interesting to you. You thought, okay, if these stories are here, there must be more that are like those. So that's, does each topic of your book potentially kind of evolve out of the current one? I mean, I don't mean exactly, but where you get your next ideas, or do you already have your editorial calendar planned out for the next 2 years or both? Right?
Yeah.
Those aren't usually exclusive.
So I definitely don't have, I don't have the calendar planned for the next year. Like, I know Schools Canceled will be our summer book, and we'll launch that as the school year picks up again in August. And I'm sure over the next month, I'll get that spark of, okay, then what is the next book going to look like? So I do two things. I tend to respond to what I see going on in the world, right, and leading through the pandemic, or this next one, Schools Canceled. Or I just get that feeling of who do I want to meet? What do I want to learn about? And that's what inspired Significant Women. So it's responding, and then also making sure that it's personally fulfilling, and I'm working with the types of people and the types of projects that I want to be, because that's one of the joys of being an entrepreneur is being selective. In corporate, if the client pays, you're working with the client. Right. As an entrepreneur, and that can be challenging because you're under.
It's on you. It's on you. But I think that's the risk taking gets balanced by the what do I want to do, what do I think is next, as opposed to the other one. So selfishly, it's why I'm talking to you today, Kayleigh, because I was like, I want to learn more about multi-author books. I want the people I talk to learn more about these opportunities. I think also, to me, what's so appealing to this is what you just said was this is more than a book. This is a community, right? And it's connections that are made. I'm assuming there's connections that are made by each of the people that are in the book, because we're kind of in this project together, and the ripple effects that go on from that, that are potentially less measurable in quantity, but in quality and how it plays out later, and also to them, what you've brought to them as part of their career or as part of their leadership, like is a gift as well. So I love, there's so many perks that go beyond getting to say, I, was published in a book, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more that means that. So Kayleigh, what's the best way for people to connect with you? Do you have like a primer? Do you have how do you love to hear from people, or how do people learn more about you?
Yeah, the best place is to either find me on LinkedIn, since I just do work with a lot of executives, entrepreneurs. So you can find me there. My website is KayleighO'Keefe.com. A lot's under construction there, but it'll give you a good sense of the leadership books and the work that I do outside of just publishing, more related to leadership and personal development. So those are the two best spots. And then of course, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. But in those spots, you'll get a good sense of what's going on.
Okay, and I'm going to give a shameless plug because I know you're on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So for those of us on Clubhouse that are, sort of, I won't say, we're not trolling around, who are wandering the halls and hosting some rooms. If you're on Clubhouse, Kayleigh's there, and you're hosting an event next week.
Yeah, I think Tuesday, 5 Eastern, it's How to Lead a Life of Significance. And we'll be featuring the women who are in this book. So it's a way to start getting the message out there and for people to start sharing back to this, like, what matters to you? And then how do you navigate life? So it'll be our first of probably many conversations related to that topic in advance of the launch.
I love it. Well, Kayleigh, thank you for your time. Thank you for your enthusiasm and kind of bringing a new awareness to this kind of step into publishing that I don't think a lot of people are necessarily familiar with. And love the name of your company and how, you're bringing this excellence and soulfulness to it, which feels a lot better than I think a lot of people think. So thank you for your time. It's great to see you.
This was so fun. Thank you.
Take care. We'll see you soon.